Education must give enlightenment, that is, enlightening the understanding, and it should enrich the character. This only can be the proper response from the side of the society and the education system in order to build up a greater youth, greater segment of the people in the society who will think about the society and who will work for the society. In the hoary history of our land, that is India, there is one fact which deserves to be brought to the surface of our minds. In ancient India, kings and emperors thought it is a privilege to sit at the feet of men of learning. Intellectuals and men of knowledge were given the highest honor in the society. King Janaka himself, a philosopher, journeyed on foot into the jungle for a discourse with Yajnavalkya on high matters of state. This is the culture in India which developed over the centuries, the respect they have given for men of letters, of intellectuals. This is what has to be inducted into the minds of the young people. Then now coming to the point of this enlightenment. What is enlightenment? What sort of enlightenment has to be given to the younger generation through a form of education? Today, intellectual means a man who is intelligent enough to know on which side his bread is buttered. Education has been called the technique of transmitting civilization. Transmitting the civilization, here I would call transforming the civilization also. Both transmitting and transforming the civilization has to be done by the education, that to value-based education. So it has to perform to enlighten the understanding and enrich the character. Now we will discuss who is enlightened. The two marks of a truly educated man whose understanding has been enlightened are the capacity to think clearly, with clarity, and intellectual curiosity. Here the two qualities: thinking clearly, and intellectual curiosity. If you have intellectual curiosity with the background of thinking with clarity, definitely that generation, that young man can have become the enlightened knowledge and he will become an enlightened citizen of the country. In the 18th century, there was a discussion about this, at least to sit in the contraption that flies, but it has not made it possible for man to think unless he is associated with this enlightened thinking. The capacity to think clearly should enable the student to sift and reject when necessary the ideas and ideologies which are perpetually inflicted on him by the mass media and communication. This mass media of communication constantly influencing the brain, constantly trying to erase the ideas which are positive ideas in the brains of the young people. To meet the challenge of this onslaught by the mass communication media, and that trying to thrust their ideologies and their own interpretations, if they have to be properly judged and if necessary they have to be dissected, that capacity will be there for only for a student or a youth when they has proper enlightenment. That is where we have to concentrate. Enlightenment, that is the scope and definition of the enlightenment. This enlightenment should enable him to realize that these mass media are in chains to the foolish and narrowing purpose of selling consumer goods, and nowadays one-sided news influencing your brain ideologically. to the narrowing, the stilling purpose of politics. This is what actually happening. A liberal education is a prophylaxis against unthinking, unacceptance, and acceptance of the modern ideas. That's not the case. Even a new idea, even however modern it is, whether even if it is advocated by a mass media, the student should have the discerning intellectual capacity with enlightenment to reject to what extent the idea communicated by the mass communication and mass media, and to what extent, to what content he has to absorb and what content he has to reject to his mind. That is really the enlightenment of the caliber required to the present generation. Alfred Marshall once said, students of social science must fear popular approval. Evil is with them. When all men speak well of them, it is almost impossible for a student to be a true patriot and have the reputation of being one at the same time. This is a wonderful idea communicated by the Alfred Marshall. So now we'll go to the second point, that is intellectual curiosity. Intellectual curiosity would enable the student to continue intellectually and to intensify the process of learning after he has come out of the institution also. He must be comfortable to learn even after coming out of the university. Here I would like to quote the great quotation given by Dr. Radhakrishnan, saying that no university can be considered as a true university unless it sends out men and women who are not only highly educated but whose hearts are filled with compassion for the suffering humanity. That is what is absolutely required to the present generation through education. Over the centuries, mankind has built up treasure house of art and knowledge, of thoughts that wander through eternity, and of art which is a wide world memory of things. The pursuit of knowledge and the exploration of the priceless cultural heritage of India and other countries are too vast for the longest life. That has to be summarized. That has to be comprehensively prepared in the form of a capsule or a tablet and given to the student. After all, any human life, long or short, is just a brief candle. Life is but a wintry day. Some come to breakfast and away, others to dinner stay and are full fed. The oldest man but sups and goes to bed. So a well-furnished mind, a well-trained mind with intellectual curiosity, definitely it will develop a habit of grasping things from the art and culture and literature. What is good for the mind, what is good for the society, and what content can be taken and what content can be rejected. See, making them to read immortal classics, which will develop intellectual curiosity. It is amazing how great books of your implement replenish life and make it fuller and richer. In the beautiful words of T.S. Eliot, which are inscribed on his tomb in Westminster Abbey, the communication of the dead is tongued with a fire beyond the language of the living. So this is where our ancestral books, communication, that knowledge has to be brought to the minds of the people. This enrichment of character. Let me now come to the second function of education, enriching the character. What we need today more than anything else is moral leadership founded on courage, intellectual integrity, and a sense of values. We are surrounded by too many persons who are willing to compromise and temporize. We have in our minds, in the midst of our too many boneless wonders. With such men expediently, a man who has no courage is not at all useful. A man with courage never to submit or yield to like a host can who can stand like a rock in the wilderness of shifting sand. That means that is where the moral courage will work out. In India today, there are shortages of many commodities, but nothing is so scarce as intellectual integrity. This is where this society is suffering, country is suffering, the lack of intellectual integrity. This can be developed only by enlightening the individual, enriching the character of the individual youth. Closer contact with the world will convince you that intellectual integrity in a much rarer quality than financial integrity. The treason of the intellectual consists in his not speaking out loud and clear for the values that he, by his vision and the very nature of his personality, holds sacred. In spite of having a feeling of that his values are sacred, why he is not able to coming out? That level of enlightenment, that courage, that intellectual integrity has not been built. Now this is the right time to build all those things. What is needed is the resolute courage to stand up and the counted to support of a view which is not popular. Everyone finds it easy to swim with the tide. The great scientist Hardy said, "It is never worth a first-class man's time to express a majority opinion. By definition, there are plenty of others to do that. But what about you? To express even if it is not palatable to the society or at times not palatable to the men around you, but still you must be in a position to communicate your idea, whether it is palatable to the people or not." That is where the sense of values, there is no substitute for a sense of values. As Einstein observed, it is essential that the student acquire an understanding of a lively feeling for values. He must acquire a vivid sense of the beautiful and of morally good. Otherwise, he with his specialized knowledge more closely resembles a well-trained dog than harmoniously developed person. After all, if education produces well-trained dogs, it is of no use. So it has to produce the harmonious personalities who can be enlightened, who has enriched character, and who have the commitment to speak truth. They are standing like a rock for the purpose of the values he cherished or which are required for the society. This is what required in the new education system to the current generation in order to become good citizens and serve the society and country. Thank you very much.